Strap yourself in because it was E3 this week and it was a doozy. If there was any other news this week, we'll get to it some other time. E3 started off big on Sunday with Titanfall 2. Just around the corner with an October 28th release date, the mech shooter sequel will add 6 new Titans, more customization options, a deeper progression system, and an offline single-player campaign. After that, EA moved on to sports games and esports for sports games. That's right, professional Madden players. I can only imagine that this is what normies feel like when they see pro League of Legends players. Moving back to games, EA reminded people that they still have the Star Wars license, but really didn't show what they're doing with it. BioWare also reminded people that they aren't done milking Mass Effect yet, but also didn't really show off anything interesting about that game. And of course, we got another cool-looking indie game presented by a nervous Scandinavian man, which I guess is going to be an EA tradition from now on. And finally, Battlefield 1 is headed for the First World War, complete with trenches and shovels. Next up, there was Bethesda, and after reviving Wolfenstein and Doom for a new generation, id Software is taking their shot at Quake with a new arena-based hero shooter, Quake Champions. On the Elder Scrolls front, Bethesda showed off their online card game, the remastered Skyrim, and the new content for Elder Scrolls Online. A newish first-person shooter was announced with Prey, and while Prey is an existing franchise, there doesn't appear to be much connecting this new game to the original beyond the name. On the VR side of things, Doom and Fallout 4 were announced for the HTC Vive, but most importantly, Dishonored 2. Announced at last year's show, there was a lot more to show off before its November 11th release date. Set several years after the original game, this time around you get to choose to play as either Emily Caldwin or Corvo Attano as they fend off yet another attempt to usurp the throne. Whether it will be a new gameplay mechanic this time around, providing different opportunities for stealthy tricks, and speaking of tricks, Emily has an arsenal of new abilities that'll let you mesmerize enemies, grab objects and enemies from a distance, and basically be the darkness. The conferences continued on Monday with Microsoft starting the show with their Xbox One S, a slimmer version of the system not to be confused with Project Scorpio. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, games. Gears of War 4 looks exactly like what you'd expect from a Gears of War game, but it has the distinction of being the first Xbox One title to share a release with the PC, or specifically Windows 10. Buying the console version of the game will also get you a copy of the PC version, which will basically be interchangeable, allowing you to access saves or multiplayer regardless of what you play it on. In fact, virtually everything exclusive to the Xbox will be getting a Windows 10 counterpart, from Killer Instinct DLC to Forza to ReCore. Also in the realm of crossplay, Minecraft is expecting an update with revolutionary advances like add-ons and the ability to allow players to host their own servers and join with their friends from Xbox to PCs to tablets.
With the introduction of Realms, you can play with your friends how you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. The choice is yours.
As long as that device has a Microsoft name on it. Not exclusive to the Xbox, but still really cool, is Final Fantasy XV. In the Xbox demo, the party fights a Titan, and okay, it's mostly just dodging a giant fist over and over, but the boys win eventually. Even cooler is some new footage for We Happy Few, a super creepy horror thriller coming to PC and Xbox from Compulsion Games. Then, from CD Projekt Red, there's Gwent, turning the Witcher minigame into a fully fledged title. After that, there was Tekken vs. Street Fighter? No, it's actually just Tekken 7, and no joke, they straight up ignored the Akuma in the room. But speaking of Capcom, Frank West is coming home for Christmas when Dead Rising 4 releases on December 6th. Meanwhile, from Platinum Games, there's Scalebound. Part action RPG, part spectacle fighter, this Microsoft exclusive features a half-dragon Dante wannabe who can team up with up to 4 other players for co-op combat. From Rare, we finally got a good look at Sea of Thieves gameplay, and, well, it looks like a fun game so long as you have a crew of wacky friends to play it with. Otherwise, you may just want to watch professional streamers play it on Twitch. State of Decay 2 looks like your standard zombie apocalypse game, now with co-op features. And Halo Wars 2 is a thing, I guess. In spite of being an RTS, the announcement trailer shows a good representation of what turn-based strategy must look like in the real world. And of course, all this cross-system compatibility going around will be handy because Microsoft announced Project Scorpio. With system specs designed for 4K and VR, Project Scorpio isn't technically a next-gen system so much as an upgrade. Think of it as an Xbox 1.5. Now, all Xbox One games will allegedly be able to work on both systems, so don't get out the pitchforks quite yet. Of course, how well those games run on the older systems may be another story. And now, moving on to Ubisoft, Just Dance had dancing animals, Ghost Recon had co-op shooting things in South Africa, Eagle Flight VR had eagles flying in VR, The Division had co-op shooting things in New York City, Grow Up will take you from Birth to the Moon, For Honor will give you single-player stabbing things in various trope-inspired locations, weird crossover between Blood Dragon and Trials, and Watch Dogs 2 desperately wants you to forget about how disappointing the first game was, but really doesn't give you much of a reason to. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, the true highlight of the Ubisoft show, South Park, The Fractured Butthole. Switching things up from the previous game, this time around the kids of South Park are moving from a fantasy setting to superheroes. The gameplay is changing as well, going from JRPG mechanics to more turn-based strategy. The new game will be out on December 6th, but if you haven't played the original yet, pre-order customers will get South Park The Stick of Truth for free. And also pretty cool from Ubisoft, the VR experience we've always wanted, Star Trek Bridge Crew. Ubisoft pulled together a few Star Trek alumni to demonstrate the game, which actually looks kinda similar to that cell phone party game. But hey, it's in VR, and it's Star Trek. And for the last conference before E3 officially began, Sony had games, and more games, starting their conference off with God of War Viking Edition. Bearded and babysitting a kid, Kratos is still fighting giant monsters, but this time in the Norse lands. Revived at last year's E3, The Last Guardian is still in development, but at least now it has a release date. After years in the works, the game will finally come out on October 26th. For more open-world adventure, Horizon Zero Dawn shows off some pretty conventional gameplay in a pretty cool setting as you play a tribal warrior in a world of mechanical animals. Then from David Lynch, there's Detroit Become Human, a sweet-looking choose-your-own-adventure game where you play an android hostage negotiator. Who knows how much your choices will really matter in the game, but it's hard not to be impressed by that trailer. Next up, a first-person horror game where you seem to be stuck in a haunted house of some kind. And if that sounds like Resident Evil to you, then good guess. Because that is Resident Evil 7. Not only will the game be in first person, but it'll also support VR, and it is far from the only one. Along with a new game called Farpoint getting the VR treatment, Star Wars Battlefront, Batman, and Final Fantasy XV will all get VR side games. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare softened up some of the haters with a pretty sweet space battle demo, and maybe now they won't feel so bad about the game being bundled with Modern Warfare Remastered. And speaking of remasters, Crash is coming back. 20 years after their PlayStation debut, the first 3 games in the series will be remastered for the PS4 next year. And then this happened. Yes, that is a naked CGI Norman Reedus holding up an invisible tar baby that he apparently gave birth to. Hideo Kojima, everybody, because if you thought the Metal Gear Solid franchise was weird, just wait to see what he comes up with now that he's got his own studio. Okay, back to something that makes sense, like a kid in spandex sticking to walls and beating up bad guys. Insomniac is developing a PS4 exclusive Spider-Man title with a strangely original costume for some reason. No gameplay was shown, but wow, does that trailer look good. And finally, you know what the video game industry really needs? A game with zombies in it. To be fair, this demo for Days Gone shows off zombie horde action better than any I've ever seen, even though the guy playing it really needs to stop wasting his ammo. And finally, there's Nintendo, who, instead of putting out a Nintendo Direct this year, decided to just spend all day playing the new Zelda game for Wii U. After years of development with nary a word about the finer details, Zelda fans were given information overload for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The demo was set on the Great Plateau, which, in spite of its size, is only a small fraction of the full game. Getting across this land, Link can run, glide, climb, raft, shield surf, and even jump. Yes, that's right, there is a jump button. One of the most notable changes is in the way the gear works. Without the Master Sword, Link has to use whatever weapons he can get his hands on. Swords, clubs, spears, axes, even pitchforks can all be used as long as their durability holds out. Likewise, Link will be wearing a variety of clothes and armors through the game. Or not.
I don't know why Link has a shirt on right now. Yeah. It's not okay. It's really not okay, but we fixed the situation.
We did.
But when you are wearing clothes, they will give you different stats and buffs, particularly where your environment is concerned. Some of the colder environments in the game seem to require Link to dress up in warmer clothes, but there are ways around it. Gathering food is a new gameplay element, and after collecting a variety of ingredients, Link can combine them to create foods that serve different functions, such as giving temporary hearts or buffs to protect against the cold. No dungeons were featured in the demo, instead players navigated some of the many shrines throughout the game. There are reportedly more than 100 of these mini-dungeons scattered around the full game, each with their own set of puzzles to challenge you. Shrines also seem to give Link rune abilities, which replace regular items that we'd know and love. Instead of bombs being an inventory item, for instance, you instead get the ability to magically create them. Other abilities are a bit more unconventional, like the metal-controlling magnesis ability or the ability to stop an object in time. Physics puzzles seem to be a big thing both in and out of the shrines, with boulder rolling looking like it's going to be one of Link's favorite pastimes while wandering around. Naturally, the game will also come with amiibo functionality. In the case of the Wolf Link amiibo, beating the Cave of Shadows on The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess will let you summon Wolf Link into Breath of Wild as a companion. The AI-controlled wolf will attack enemies, hunt food, and last as long as it has hearts. Other amiibos are also on their way, one with Link on Epona, and another with Link firing his super arrow, along with one of the mechanical guardians. And while most of Nintendo's E3 efforts were centered around Zelda, that wasn't the only game that got some attention. We got a rare look at Pokemon Go, and while nothing was shown about the battle system, they did demonstrate how to capture Pokemon, finding them in the world and using augmented reality to throw the Pokeballs. Right now, only the first 150 Pokemon will be available, but Nintendo has confirmed plans to add future generations are in the works. And that is it for E3. Moving on to this week's releases, this Friday we have Independence Day Resurgence. After 20 years, the alien menace is back to ruin the rest of our national monuments. God bless America and welcome to Earth. And if you're not afraid to go into the water, maybe check out The Shallows. Somebody finally found something original to do with the killer shark premise as a lone surfer gets trapped by a particularly persistent great white. Over on television, LEGO Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures premieres on Monday, June 20th on Disney XD, and on Wednesday on CBS, the first season of American Gothic airs, and wait a second, this isn't connected to the supernatural thriller from the 90s? Okay, back to video games. Releasing on PC this week, we have Deadlight Director's Cut, an updated version of the survival horror puzzle platformer. This new version includes tightened controls and new animations, along with a new survival arena mode, which, to be honest, seems like it could have been patched into the original game. Speaking of zombies, Capcom is taking another shot at Resident Evil-themed co-op shooters with Umbrella Corps. Visit nostalgic locations, meet familiar monsters, and shoot your way through them as you fight the enemy team. And speaking of disappointing things spawned from Capcom, Mighty No. 9. While some people won't believe it until they see it, it looks like the supposed successor to Mega Man is finally being released. Mighty No. 9 once seemed to be leading the way for game developers to leave their corporate overlords and use Kickstarter to create new franchises, but after several delays, terrible community management, and the most cringeworthy trailer ever created, enthusiasm is not what it used to be. And speaking of cringe, test your resilience with VA11 Hall A, Cyberpunk Bartender Action. It's an indie boozem-up about waifus, technology, and post-dystopia life. Yes, I know it's supposed to read Valhalla. And finally, more zombies. Killbot Dead Zone isn't the prettiest game out there, but if you want a co-op zombie shooter a little more colorful than Umbrella Corps, here you go. Wrapping things up, we have this week's Sweet CGBros video, the award-winning short You Are Not Alone by Yufeng Li. And finally, this week's awesome video shows just how cool an Overwatch series could be with this anime-styled opening from Inkling Inkling. That's everything for this week, so what was your favorite game at E3? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week.